If you had told me 6 months ago that my biggest nemesis in life would be a middle-aged woman in a floral cardigan, I would have laughed. I mean, sure, I'd heard of nightmare HOAs before, power-hungry busybodies who turn neighborhood living into a bureaucratic hellscape. But I wasn't even in an HOA. That little fact, however, didn't seem to matter to Marge Whitaker, the self-appointed guardian of suburban conformity. Marge had the demeanor of a woman who had never lost an argument in the Facebook comment section. She walked the neighborhood like she was inspecting troops, wielding her clipboard like a scepter. And for reasons I still don't fully understand, she had chosen me as her personal project. It all started with the fence. A simple electric fence, entirely legal, entirely safe, installed to keep my overly curious golden retriever, Murphy, from charging through my backyard and into the neighbor's koi pond again. It wasn't some high-voltage monstrosity, just a low-voltage deterrent, the kind that gives a slight zap if an animal gets too close. Murphy learned his lesson in 2 days. Unfortunately, Marge never did. The first time she showed up at my door, she had the same expression I imagined she'd use to report a war crime. "This is a dangerous and illegal installation," she declared, waving a printout of some HOA bylaw in my face. I frowned. "Marge, I'm not in an HOA." She blinked, momentarily thrown off. "That doesn't matter. This is a community, and I represent its interests." "Right. Well, the county allows these fences, and mine follows all the regulations." That didn't go over well. Marge sniffed, eyeing me like I'd just confessed to running an underground fight club. "I don't think you understand. This fence is a danger to children, to pets, to society." I opened my mouth to argue, but before I could, she whipped out her phone and called the police. Now, you'd think this would be the peak of absurdity, but no, this was just the warm-up act. The officers arrived, looking as bewildered as I felt, when Marge breathlessly accused me of setting up a lethal electric perimeter. When I explained the situation, complete with documentation, the officers exchanged glances, gave Marge the standard, "Ma'am, this is not a criminal matter" speech, and left. Marge, humiliated but undeterred, pivoted into her next phase of attack, bureaucracy. The next morning, I found an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a violation notice from an entity that did not exist. "Dear homeowner, you are in violation of community standards as dictated by the local homeowners association. Your illegal electric fence is an immediate threat and must be removed within 48 hours or face escalating fines." It was signed, of course, by Margaret Whitaker, HOA president. I burst out laughing until I saw the fine, $500. I tossed the letter in the trash, but the next day, another one appeared. Then another. The wording became more dramatic. The fines skyrocketed, $1,000, $2,500. She even sent one threatening legal action. At first, I ignored it, but then I started hearing whispers. Marge had taken her crusade online. The neighborhood Facebook group, a once peaceful place of lost pet posts and passive-aggressive rants about recycling bins, was now home to a full-fledged fear campaign. Urgent. Community warning. One of our neighbors has installed an illegal electric fence, endangering our pets and children. Do not let your children play near his property. We must take action before someone gets hurt. Comments flooded in. Some people believed her, while others just enjoyed the drama. "She can't be serious, right?" My friend Jake texted me. "Oh, she's serious," I replied. "Deadly serious." Then she upped the ante. One evening, I checked my security cameras and saw Marge lurking near my yard. I watched, stunned, as she dragged a stray cat toward my fence, clearly trying to stage some kind of horrific accident. Murphy barked wildly. From the window as Marge, after several failed attempts, gave up and scurried off, looking around like a cartoon villain. I had the whole thing on video. I sat back, stunned. Marge was officially off the rails. I wasn't just dealing with a control freak. I was dealing with someone willing to fabricate evidence to get what she wanted. That night, I uploaded the footage to the same Facebook group where she had waged her war against me. The reaction was instantaneous. Marge. What the hell? Is she trying to frame him? This woman has lost her mind. Some of her supporters backpedaled fast. Others doubled down, claiming I had doctored the footage. But the best part? Someone tagged the local police department. Just when I thought it was over, Marge made one last move, one so outrageous, so over the top, that it would finally seal her fate, and I was ready for it. I just didn't realize how far she was willing to go. The morning after the security footage scandal, I stepped outside to find something new taped to my door. It wasn't another fake HOA violation notice. It wasn't even an escalation of her legal threats. This time, it was a petition. We, the concerned residents of Maple Ridge, demand the immediate removal of the dangerous and illegal electric fence at 124 West Haven Drive. This hazard poses a clear and present threat to our community and must be eliminated for the safety of our children, pets, and the sanctity of our neighborhood. Underneath were dozens of signatures. Some were real. Some, I strongly suspected, were forged. One belonged to Mrs. Delacroix, my 92-year-old neighbor, who had told me just last week that she didn't even own a pen, and taped beneath the petition, a cease and desist letter written in Comic Sans Atti. This point, I should have been furious. I should have been knocking on doors, demanding to know why my neighbors were siding with a woman who had been caught on camera dragging a stray cat into my yard. But instead, I laughed. Because I knew Marge wasn't just trying to make my life hell, she was desperate. The video had turned public opinion against her, and now she was scrambling, doing what all power-hungry lunatics do when they start losing control. She was doubling down, and things were about to get a whole lot worse. That evening, I sat on my porch with a beer, watching the sunset and enjoying a rare moment of peace when I heard a loud clank from the front yard. I turned my head just in time to see Marge yanking a wooden post out of my lawn. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Blinked. "Marge, what the hell are you doing?" She dropped the post like a guilty child caught stealing cookies and immediately launched into her usual self-righteous monologue. "This fence is a blight on this community. If the authorities won't do anything, then we will." We? I looked around, but no one else was there. Not a single person. It was just Marge in her pastel windbreaker gripping my fence post like she was about to go full Paul Bunyan on my property. "So, just you then?" I clarified. She scowled. "This is a community action." I took a deep breath, pressing my fingers to my temples. "Marge, you can't just—" "I can and I will," she shrieked, and before I could react, she swung the wooden post like a baseball bat, directly at my fence. It didn't do much. The post bounced off harmlessly, but that wasn't the point. The point was that she had just physically attacked my property, and she wasn't done. By the time the cops arrived, she had already tried to rip another post out of the ground. I didn't even have to explain. The officers already knew who she was. One of them sighed as soon as he saw her. "Ma'am," one of them started, clearly exhausted, "you can't destroy private property." "It's illegal," Marge barked back. "It's not illegal," the officer countered. Marge's eye twitched. "I have a petition," she hissed, whipping out her clipboard like a weapon. The officer gave it a glance and handed it back without a word. Marge's face turned purple. "You're all just letting this happen," she snapped, voice shaking with rage. "You're letting this man endanger the neighborhood." The officer sighed again. "Ma'am, if you continue this behavior, we're going to have to charge you with vandalism." I braced myself, expecting her to explode. Instead, she laughed. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was the kind of laugh a villain makes in a bad movie. Slow, low, and unnerving. And then she said something that made my stomach drop. "Oh, you think this is over?" she whispered, looking me dead in the eyes. "This is only the beginning." And with that, she turned on her heel and stomped away. I didn't sleep well that night. For weeks, Marge had been escalating things in ridiculous ways. But that laugh, that whispered threat, felt different. So I installed more cameras. And it was a damn good thing I did, because at 3:12 a.m. I got a motion alert. I groggily grabbed my phone, expecting to see a raccoon digging through my trash. Instead, I saw Marge, creeping toward my house, with a can of spray paint. I jolted upright, heart pounding, as I watched her scrawl something in huge red letters across my fence. Then she turned, sprinted back into the darkness, and disappeared. I threw on a sweatshirt and ran outside, my pulse in my throat. I flicked on the porch light and finally saw what she had written. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't some unhinged manifesto. It was one single word: murderer. I stared at it, mind racing. Murderer? What the hell was she talking about? Then it hit me. She was trying to frame me again, this time for some made-up crime. I stormed back inside, pulled up the camera footage, and saved every second of it. And as I watched Marge flee into the night, a plan started forming in my head. She had spent weeks trying to ruin my life, with fake violations, false accusations, and public smear campaigns. But now I had everything I needed to take her down, and I was about to make damn sure that when Marge Whitaker finally fell, she would never get back up. The next morning I woke up early, not out of excitement, more like a deep, vengeful anticipation. I had been playing defense for weeks, trying to fend off her ridiculous attacks. Not anymore. Today, I was going on the offensive. Step 1. Public exposure. I uploaded the spray paint footage to the neighborhood Facebook page. Update on the electric fence saga last night. At 3:12 a.m., Margaret Whitaker snuck onto my property and spray painted the word murderer on my fence. If anyone still thinks she's acting in the best interest of the community, I invite you to watch the attached footage. I hit post and waited. It took 4 minutes before the comment section exploded. Oh my God, she's lost it. Did she seriously commit vandalism on camera? Marge, you absolute menace. I never signed that petition. Did she forge my name? By the time I finished my coffee, half the neighborhood had turned against her. Step 2. Legal consequences. Walked straight into the local police station, camera footage in hand. This wasn't some petty argument anymore. This was vandalism, trespassing, and harassment. The officer I spoke with, Officer Daniels, was the same one who had responded to her fence-ripping tantrum a few days prior. He sighed as soon as I explained why I was there. Let me guess. Margaret Whitaker. Bingo. I slid my phone across the counter. I have everything on video. He watched the footage, jaw tightening. Yeah, this is bad. Then he looked at me. You want to press charges? I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Step 3, the final showdown. That afternoon, I was in my front yard scrubbing the spray paint off my fence when I heard it. The sound of police sirens. A patrol car rolled down the street and came to a stop in front of Marge's house. I turned just in time to see her peek through her blinds, then slam them shut. 2 officers stepped out. One of them knocked on her door. No answer. They knocked again. Ma'am, this is the police. We need to speak with you. Still nothing. And then, just when I thought she might actually barricade herself inside, the front door flew open. Marge stormed out, eyes wild, lips curled into a sneer. What is the meaning of this? The officers exchanged looks. Ma'am, we have video evidence of you trespassing and committing vandalism on private property. You're under arrest for... Oh, spare me! She threw up her hands. This is a witch hunt. A targeted smear campaign orchestrated by a... She turned and pointed directly at me. Criminal! The officers weren't buying it. Ma'am, turn around and place your hands behind your back. Marge laughed. A manic, breathless laugh. This is ridiculous. I am the president of this community. I am the law here. One of the officers sighed. Ma'am, you're not in an HOA. You've never been in an HOA. That was it. That was the moment she snapped. Marge charged toward my yard. This isn't over, you little... Zap! She ran straight into my electric fence. It wasn't lethal. Of course, but the instant jolt of static startled her so badly that she tripped over her own feet and went down like a sack of flour. Silence. Then, a single cough from one of the officers. "You good, ma'am?" Marge whimpered. The officers hoisted her up and cuffed her, but the moment they did, the entire neighborhood began to gather. People emerged from their homes, some filming, others just watching in awe. Mrs. Delacroix shuffled forward, gripping her cane. "So she really forged my name, huh?" "Yep," I confirmed. She nodded. "Good. Arrest her." A few of the more dramatic neighbors cheered as Marge was hauled into the back of the patrol car, still shouting about how she would have the last laugh. I waved as they drove off. She didn't wave back. In the days that followed, the fallout was glorious. The fake HOA she had been running, dismantled. Every ridiculous fine she had issued, null and void. The social media page she had used to spread her lies, deleted. Oh, and as an extra bonus, turns out that several of the homeowners she had scammed into paying her bogus HOA dues were pressing fraud charges. I had won. The community was finally free, and best of all, I could finally enjoy my damn fence, one. Week later, I sat on my porch watching Murphy nap in the sun, when Jake strolled up the driveway with a grin. "So," he said, "word on the street is that Marge made bail." I raised an eyebrow. "You're kidding." "Nope. And you won't believe where she's moving." I took a sip of my beer. "Please tell me it's somewhere far, far away." Jake smirked. "Oh, it's far, all right. Gated community. Strict. HOA. Real sticklers for the rules." I nearly choked on my drink. "You're serious?" He nodded. "Apparently, she tried to tell the HOA board she was running the place. They hit her with a $500 violation for improper use of the community. Bulletin board. I lost it. Marge, the woman who ruled this street with an iron fist, finally stuck in a system she couldn't control. Pure, unfiltered, poetic justice." Jake clinked his beer against mine. "To peace and quiet," I smirked. "And to legal fences." Murphy balked in approval, and for the first time in months, everything was perfectly still.